Good morning and welcome to Talking Balearics with me, Martin Makepeace, in a very rainy Benidorm.
Benidorm.
Yes.
Interesting. Not another holiday, surely.
Well, it's St. Patrick. It was a St. Patrick's Day party yesterday, which I was invited to. So I thought I would just come over for the day. I'm going back to Ibiza in about 4 hours' time. So just enjoying the rain-soaked beach as I look over to the Rock of Calpe at the moment, Rich.
Very nice. Yeah, well, I'm Richie Pryor and I'm in Mallorca and we are talking Balearics, Martin.
We are, mate. Now, what have you got for me this week, Richie?
This week, the anti-tourism protesters have raised their ugly head again, which has made news back in the UK.
You know something, Richie? Two or three people mentioned that to me yesterday when I was talking to them about Ibiza. So it's obviously big news these days, isn't it?
It hit the headlines back in the UK, so we'll talk about that. Also talking about apparently Gen Z are ditching holiday destinations such as Ibiza for more unlikely holiday destinations. Apparently, the days of the party, sort of up the strip in Mallorca and up the in San Antonio, are over now.
You mean the West End, Rich, didn't you? That's what you
the
meant to
West
say,
End. I
wasn't
couldn't
it?
remember the name of it. That was
Yeah. I think we'll differ on views for that one, but yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
Okay, what you got?
We've had a very strange week in Ibiza because we've had a squatting incident, which I want to go into detail on, which I think is very interesting, and I think it just shows the laws in Spain to be completely out of sync with everything that we need. I've got a famous person looking to come over to Balearics, maybe Ibiza, maybe Mallorca, which I'll drop that into as well. We've got someone who's returning. And we've got some news actually from Palma, which I picked up, which I shared with you this morning. Some news about houses, house prices, and there's going to be a little development for assisted housing as well. So that's interesting.
Good. And any universe news for us this week?
I have got a little bit of a snippet, yeah, but I'll leave that to the end, Rich. I like to keep you in suspenders.
Brilliant. Thank you, mate. So should we start with the tourism protests?
Yes, please.
Well, obviously they've been very quiet for the last 5 or 6 months because really there obviously hasn't been any major tourism problems. But I know there've been some problems over in the Canaries because obviously the Canaries is more of a 12-month destination than we are here. This is basically, hitting the headlines again. Basically, they're saying they're going to come out. They're not happy with some of the decisions that's been taken already. They're not happy with some of the policies that have been set out. And they're getting together with other places, though. That's what I've been told. There's places like Portugal, Italy, other destinations, particularly in southern Europe, who are a bit upset with what they're calling the over sort of tourism things that are happening, particularly in the high season.
I mean, Rich, where are we going with this, Rich? Because as you rightly say there's been no protest, no nothing for the last 4 or 5 months. Now, why is that? Because we're not overpopulated in the winter. Okay, now there's major problems in the Canaries, and I get that because that's a 12-month resort. But we are a tourist island open, really. I know we bang on about winter tourism, but really, Rich, all we get is 6 months, isn't it? Listen, say 7 months at a push. But out of those 7 months, we probably get 3 busy months, and out of those 3 busy months, we probably get 4 weeks that are ridiculously busy. So I really don't get it. I mean, it's not tourismophobia. I would say it's property phobia, because the problem is that the tourists are driving out the locals, and that's not the tourists' fault.
No, it's totally. I'm with you on everything you just said there, to be perfectly honest. It seems totally and utterly ridiculous for me, living here in Mallorca, to be told that, it's overpopulated. Well, let's face it, I don't know what it's like in Ibiza, but Mallorca is overpopulated with just residents, to be perfectly honest. And those residents are adding to the housing problem, as well as the traffic problem, as well as the sustainability problem, etc. And then when you add into the mix tourists over the course of the summer season, which, as you say, really, we're talking about July and maybe August as well, those 2 busy months that we have. But to be honest with you, this is a systemic failure from governments year after year after year that haven't really tackled this problem and really put it to bed. The socialists were in power for about, 14 years or whatever it was, didn't really do anything about it, and now sort of, joining the bandwagon to say, well, the PP who are governing in a minority here, of course, as well, aren't doing enough about it, which is totally ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. What's frustrating about it, Rich, is as I said, I blogged about it in 2017. So 8 years ago, I said they've got a housing crisis. In that 8 years, nothing's been done. Now we're seeing that everyone's calling out everyone else, and who's in the crossfire? The tourists. Now the tourists are our lifeblood. They are. I mean, I know it's a little bit different in Mallorca because you're a major city of Palma, you're a major island, you've got lots of industry, but here in Ibiza we've got nothing else. In Formentera there's zero else apart from tourism. And interesting enough, Formentera have got this. I think they've got it right, Richie. Formentera have got it right because they govern themselves. So the PP and the PSOE aren't in Formentera. They're local parties that run it. They run it for Formentera. They're a bit like the Trump version of the Balearics, should I say, the Balearic version of the Trump, should I say, where they look after their self-interests. They put limits on cars. They put limits on tourism, and the prices are high, and they keep them high. And I think there's a lot to be learned from Formentera. The rest of us in the Balearics, we just seem to be at cross purposes all the time as well. I think what we need is leadership. We need leaders to come and say, I understand, however, this is what we're going to do to solve the problem, because it needs solving. And they're all we've got, Rich. We haven't got anything else apart from tourism in Ibiza anyway. I know in Mallorca it might be slightly different, but that's all we have. And we cannot marginalise our biggest and most important commodity.
No, and I think, there's a couple of things I want to say here. Number one is, I think we all probably know somebody connected with tourism, whether it be a friend, a family, or whatever. And I would say that to the Spanish people as well as the expats amongst us. And more importantly, I would say, well, these protesters don't talk for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
Why am I being persecuted for the fact that you're protesting? I get the fact you're protesting. I understand the sustainability problem. I get it, everything else. But we need to get around the table. We don't need to sort of keep making all these headlines up that cause panic. It does cause panic.
Yeah.
People read the headlines and they believe that. I got an email from someone last year to say, I'm not coming to Palma because of the riots in Palma over the tourism sustainability. And was like, riots? Where did you hear about riots?
Yeah.
Come on, it gets out of hand. And the problem is that they're creating this, and people like me and you and quite a lot of other people that we know work in tourism. And it's our lifeblood, as you say. Do you know what I mean? We need tourists to sustain them, and it's not as if we're working 12 months of the year, because quite a lot of us out there aren't working 12 months of the year. We're probably working 6, possibly 4 months that we're really, really busy, and we've got to sustain ourselves over the course of that 12-month period. And there's a lot of businesses in that. And I would say to not only to the government who actually haven't tackled this problem, but they haven't also tackled the problem of winter tourism either. You know what I mean? If there was winter tourism and this whole thing was spread over the course of 12 months rather than trying to pack it all into 6, then maybe this problem wouldn't have occurred in the first place. But like anything, it just gets left and left and left until we get to the situation we're in now.
Are there any other protests organised? Have you heard of anything happening or anything like that? Or
there was an open letter delivered to the Mallorca Daily Bulletin.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's oh God. That's terrible.
But that then went to the papers in the UK. It literally went from them to that. Do you know what I mean? So it's not helpful. Do you know what I mean? It isn't helpful. And once again, I go back to it. I do agree with what they're protesting about. There is sustainability problems, but we need to get around the table and stop creating bad headlines.
Well, funny enough, Rich, going on the back of what you said there, I sent that little article today that I was reading. I didn't know this, but Margaret Prohen's the leader of the Balearic government. She's the president of the Balearic Council. She's a PP, which is the centre-right party. She has just released, or they're releasing large swathes of land in Palma. Did you know about this, Rich, to build houses on? I mean, I've just read it in the press just recently saying that they're going to build 20,000 new houses in Palma, which I think that's not going to help anything, is it? That's more people coming in. But the good news, or the upside of this, Rich, is that 10,000 of those new houses are going to be assisted housing. So one, I'd like to get to the bottom of that, because I want to know what assisted. It says that you have to be resident there for 5 years before you can apply, which is fine. I get that, but I'd like to get to the nuts and bolts of this, because I mean, I don't want to tempt fate, but I think there's be certain people at the front of the queue maybe that shouldn't be at the front of the queue as well. So I think we need to, I think in the next edition of our Talking Balearics podcast, we'll get to the bottom of that and report back about it, because as I said, it's the first time I've heard in a way, it's good news because you've got 10,000 assisted houses. But we were just saying, on an overpopulated island, you've got another 20,000 homes going up, Rich. So expect some more, how we should say, traffic jams, and expect some more queues.
Exactly. And you mentioned a story also that I think is connected to this as well, the problem of squatters now.
Yeah, big news in San Antonio this week, Rich. We've known about what in Spanish we call them Coopers. We've known about them for a long time, but it really came home to the chickens came to roost in the centre of San Antonio this week, where I live. Some squatters had gone into an old building right in the middle of town, in the old town of San Antonio. I didn't know that as long as they're there for 4 days, they have rights, Rich. Did you know that? 4 days.
Well, weirdly enough, this happened it's happened here a few times, actually. There was a big story about this in the Bellevue Hotel, which is up in Alcudia. Squatters were in the Bellevue, basically taking over one of the complexes, which, is another problem. It's a hotel. It's normally inhabited by tourists, and if you've got squatters in there, it's not going to be a great look, is it?
But exactly. But the laws allow, as long as they can prove they've been there for 4 days. And what happened in San Antonio which was quite interesting, was the owner went in, tried to help these people, and then the people then produced evidence on their phone and said, "Listen, we've been here for 4 days." They knew the law. They knew exactly what they could and couldn't do. They called the Guardia Civil, they called the police, and the police were on the side of the squatters not because they wanted to be rich, but because they had to be, because that's what the law says. Interesting enough, there was a massive backlash from the residents of San Antonio. This is a very popular family who live right in the centre of town, a well-established, well-respected family. And there was a mini riot in the town. I don't know if you've seen the videos of it. All the neighbours came together and basically hounded out the squatters, which, I've got to say is the first time it's happened. But Rich, when normal, nice people go to the streets and start acting like that, you've got problems, don't you? Because these were older, well-respected local Ibithencan people, and they just had enough, basically. And I think it was a North African family that had moved into this kind of older house, and they knew what they were doing. And I think it's a watershed moment here on the island, because it's caused a real political rumpus, as you would expect. The PP and Vox are one side of the argument, and Podemos and PSOE are the other side of the argument. So they're back and forth. But interesting enough, I saw on X, Twitter yesterday, that there's actually a new law mothballed by PSOE. So it's been mothballed for a year, a new law that's come through, which will stop all this as well. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a political bandwagon to get this law passed and see what happens. But I think it's disgusting, Rich. How can somebody take over a house after 4 days? It's just not right.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now then, it appears that the hedonistic party holidays that we obviously were part of, Mark, back in the day.
Some of them still are, Rich. Some of them still are.
Yeah, you in particular, are falling out of favour among both Gen Z and millennials, according to new research. They'd much rather be horse riding with the boys in Southeast Asia, apparently. Countries like Mongolia and Uzbekistan may not fall under the average British radar when planning their next getaway. Some even may be scratching their head and wondering where these places are. But based on research by a hospitality brand called Generator, some of the most popular and upcoming destinations for 20 to 44-year-olds are places that are really not on our radar.
I would say that I think some of that is true, but I think the proximity of the Balearic Islands, I think the proximity of the as you say, the hedonistic party lifestyle, I don't think we're going to go out of fashion, Rich, but I do think young millennials and Generation Z-ers, their tastes are changing, aren't they? And I think that's why you'll see the new things that come into Ibiza and come to Mallorca as well, because we've got islands full of entrepreneurs who change things around every year, and they kind of cater for the taste. They're outliers as well. So I can't say I'm particularly nervous about that report. Richie, are you?
Well, it says the party paradise island of Ibiza was overrated.
Well, some of us said that for years, really, but that's because we live here. And, it's kind of what's interesting about that, Rich, is you remember at that disease that we don't like to talk about, where we had no clubs and no bars and whatever. There was no dancing. Remember when they took dancing away from us, Rich? They said we couldn't dance anymore. I think it was great for about 3 or 4 days, but after that we were like, we know the value of our world-class venues and our world-class entertainment offerings. So, as I said, I'm all for adventure holidays or activity holidays, but please come to Ibiza if you can and spend some money.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Mallorca would be the same, to be perfectly honest. And obviously, you don't have to get on a plane for so many hours either, to be honest.
Which global superstar wants to move to? In the report, it says, first of all, it says Ibiza, and then at the bottom it says he's also looking in Mallorca too. Do you know which superstar it is, Rich?
Yeah, he's not looking very well these days either, actually,
No.
is he?
He's one of your favourites. He's got hair like you used to have, Rich, back in the day. The Bieber, Justin Bieber, has been reported in American press to be looking for. I don't think it's just the Balearics, make. I think it's a southern Europe bolt hole because he's sick to death of the celebrity lifestyle in LA. So you never know. Bieber might be coming to live in an apartment on your estate, Rich. You never know.
Oh, I don't blame him. It's a beautiful place to come, as you know, and very popular. I would say to him, though, be careful of the sun months. It does get quite busy.
Gone full circle. We've gone full circle. Interesting enough, Rich. He's looking at houses between 5 and 7 million euros, and there was a little report in the press this week saying that 2 records have been set in Ibiza for house prices, mate. Now, have a guess. How many millions do you think 2 houses went for an over a certain amount of money? I'll give you a clue. It's over 10 million. Go on.
What, each or
each? Yeah, there was 2 transactions.
No, 15, 20 million, something like that.
50 million euros, Rich. That's where we're at now. 50 million. I think if you'd have told me 20 years ago that houses in Ibiza would go for 50 million euros, I would never ever have believed you. But that we got 2 transactions now. Interesting enough, in that report as well, where do you think the average of luxurious houses? Where were they sold in the Balearics?
You could probably say Formentera, no?
No, it was Calvia, Rich. Calvia.
Oh, really?
Believe it or not.
That's where I live.
I know exactly. The majority of houses over us, I think it was over 8 million, was sold in Calvia. So there you go, mate. So I mean, we're talking telephone numbers. On one hand, we're talking squatters and tourismophobia. On the other hand, we're talking 50 million for houses and 8 million for Justin Bieber. I mean, the Balearics really are islands of contrast, aren't they? It's incredible.
Yeah, totally. And, I imagine why the government doesn't want to get rid of this sort of thing is because that brings in a lot of tax revenue for them, I imagine.
Absolutely. But the tax revenue from the house sales goes to the central government. It doesn't go to the local government. So,
okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It goes to the hacienda, whereas the local taxes is the plusvalia and the IBI and the basura. So just to point that out, mate.
Any universe news for us?
Last one, mate. Universe. It's not a universe story, but it's kind of related to it because David Guetta, who is one of the biggest selling artists in the world, he's a well-known DJ, world famous. He's just announced that he's going back to Ushuaia. Now, as you might know, Rich, Ushuaia is part of the same network as High and also Universe. Now, what's interesting about this story is not what it says, it's what it doesn't say, and it doesn't say that Guetta's going back to High. So that can only mean one thing.
Which is?
He might be going to Universe. That's the thing.
Okay.
So usually they announce it together that he does High and Ushuaia together, but he's only announced Ushuaia this week. So for our non-sponsor Universe, I'm expecting a little announcement very soon.
Good stuff. Well, Mark, that's it. Nice, short and sweet today.
Short and sweet. Listen, I had a cracking weekend. I went to the rugby in Cardiff on Saturday, which was amazing. The result was good for us English as well, wasn't it? So
yeah, great result.
And I really enjoyed that. And I'll be home in Ibiza later today, mate. So been a busy weekend. Can't wait to get home.
Good. Take care, Mark. I'll speak to you next week.
Cheers, Rich. Thank you very much, mate. I'll speak to you soon.
Make me dance.